AKAPAD. Thank you for sticking with me. It's a late one today because I couldn't figure out what video to release. We had Rob Liefeld scheduled originally. I was unbagging a bunch of new men. That's going to be rescheduled for next Monday. But it's Jim Lee's birthday, and you guys know, I'd lie to you. So many of you found my channel through Wildstorm Wednesday, and I just feel like it's fair to say thank you to Jim Lee and honor his contributions, even though I'm critical of a lot of his decisions and how well he runs DC. But let's grab this real quick. I did a video not long ago about this guy. This is Mr. Dane Barrington, one of the great, underrated, but one of the greatest American comic book painter/illustrator of all time. I just love the way he nails Spartan's hair here. Let's focus that. Isn't that wild? So a part of Jim Lee's trading cards. So no, I kind of wanted to spread this stuff out and just discuss a couple of things people don't bring up about Jim Lee. Through Wildstorm Productions, they did some of the best trading cards of all time. And we profiled a lot of it on this channel. We've done a lot of unboxings. It's all available on this channel's playlist. I often criticize Jim Lee for not nailing character design. But I will say that Spartan is one of his most inspired designs. Spartan just screams team leader. And it's the color combination. It's the way that the hair is illustrated or designed. But he did something very similar for Cyclops. He turned Cyclops into the definitive leader of the X-Men during his run. Some of Jim Lee's other character designs, I think, are not quite there. But Spartan, in my view, is his absolute greatest. So we can move him. But why do we have barbed wire here? Why are we looking at Pamela Anderson? Look, it's simple. Jim Lee developed an avenue to create products. One of my, it's not so much of a holy grail, but one of my last standing items to get from the Wildstorm universe, we'll call it, or Wildstorm Productions, is a chromium poster of this very cover. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is that just to remind everyone that Jim Lee through Wildstorm Productions, they were moving into very consumer-based products. And so much of that is really on the reliance of how well the Wildstorm action figures took, how well the Wildstorm cartoon series picked up, and it was really 2 years, and then Wildcats went away, and then everything became Gen 13, and the Gen 13 animated movie just never got released. It was bought by Disney and dumped. But there's a chromium poster of this, and if anyone out there that has it, I'll buy it off of you. I'd rather give money to the AKAPADers than to random other individuals. But they did a run of chromium posters. There's a Gen 13. There's a Wildcats one that I believe is animated inspired. And there's a Simon Bisley Deathblow one from the Halloween cover. Again, just reminding you guys that Jim Lee's influence in the 90s is not just Image Comics. So what are we doing here? Well, I have we got a lot of Jim Lee comics. I thought I would just share every single Jim Lee comic, and this is the first stack. We have a second stack here, and then we have yet another stack here. So one of the reasons we're delayed, I know, I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I think it'll be cool if we just go through all of my Jim Lee comics. So cheers, guys, for hanging out. And we're not going to be very critical. I will wait. You will have to wait to the very end, I will reveal Jim Lee's worst drawn cover on what could be the most important comic book in comic book history. Some of you guys already know what that is. But yeah, Jim Lee and Carl Potts, right? Like these, Carl Potts was somewhat of like Jim Lee's mentor. You kind of want to say handler during these early days at Marvel Comics. Alpha Flight. We got 55, we got 56, 57, 58, 59. Again, I think I did a live stream of this one. This is number 60 is what I believe we start to develop the Jim Lee isms. So Jim Lee and Carl Potts too, they would later collaborate on Punisher Warzone. But we just see like there's a fluidity to Jim Lee's storytelling. He's storytelling the Marvel way. It's a lot of fun for me to go through these. Look, like he's like drawing Wolverine here. Like, why is Jim Lee's like first Wolverine drawing? Like, how come that comic isn't like through the roof? 61, 62. Like we get more, and look, his inker's Al Milgrom, who is from the old school. But Jim Lee, like here, like he's struggling with that cross hatching. He hasn't yet found Scott Williams, nor do we have a lot of info if Homage Studios is rocking and rolling yet. I will say that they're not. A lot changes with Homage Studios. We have Jim Lee here on the cover. But again, too, like important stuff, like Jim Lee's first time drawing the Hulk, maybe like first time drawing Spider-Man. Price guides used to list stuff like that. They really don't list stuff like that anymore. But we just get some covers here. But we see, right, by the time we get to 75 to 87 here, I mean, this is looking very Jim Lee. Nice triangulation in the pose. Just dynamic, a lot of things happening. We see this like slopped over face a lot. Jim Lee develops a very good way of drawing that the underdraw. Wolverine, 88, 89. I mean, like, and we have to say at this point, Jim Lee has arrived, and American comics will never be the same. So again, some of Punisher War Journal overlaps with some of those Alpha Flight covers. And we have, look, Carl Potts script and layout, Jim Lee finished start. So again, like Jim Lee's working. Now, this is one of the most innovative things Marvel has ever done. Punisher War Journal #1 like sets up the monthly story, but then we get the origin in these silent panels at the bottom. Yeah, and they're toned different, they're shaded different, they have thicker borders. But Jim Lee's still learning his chops, and he's doing more work per page here. Now, given he'll do like almost like an equal amount of work, but bigger images, like splash pages, double spreads, but tons of line work. But here, like there's a lot of work when it just comes to the storytelling. And this is the same for Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane. When they're working within Marvel proper, it's really their best storytelling. When they break away from Marvel editorial, and Marvel basically gave those guys their own books to keep them out of the rest of the crap. Meaning, if Todd wants his Spider-Man book, if Jim Lee wants his X-Men book, give Rob his mutant book. But keep them out of our hair, because there's like a clash brewing here. There's a clash of, like, again, like Jim Lee working finished art here. But there's a clash of this style of storytelling and everything of the Image era. I mean, look at these captions here. It's a brewing war. And you kind of want to say, look, Jim Lee now is on Carl Potts script, Jim Lee full pencils. So Jim Lee is let off the chain, and here's what happens in relatively 1 month. They let Jim Lee off the chain. We get 4, we get 5, but then we get 6 and 7, which are somewhere. Here we go. 6. Oh my God. Here we go. Yes, we get 6 and 7, and now we get these legendary issues of Punisher versus. It's not really Wolverine. It's Patch, but whatever. But we get these legendary issues, legendary covers. Right, both of these referenced in Mallrats, if you guys want Kevin Smith reference for the night. And Jim Lee kind of like slowly starts to become the X-Men Jim Lee. Issue 8, I believe this is just the art. Jim Lee also doing the inking. So again, too, a lot of the Image guys, they would ink their own work because what they demanded from the line work, the modern day inker couldn't keep up with what they were doing. So again, we have this like a little bit of a leapfrog. 9, I believe, is also Jim Lee. I mean, look at that Black Widow. You know, like Black Widow falling in with the Punisher. These are like the Shadowlands, Shadow Men. They had their own miniseries. It was a 4-issue prestige format series. That's been on my list for a while to bring you guys. But this is also part of the expansion of the Punisher lore. Black Widow, who was a staple in Frank Miller's Daredevil, her falling into the Punisher at this time, it adds a legitimacy to the character. And like technically, she's not even on the cover, which is again, this is where he starts fighting Bushwhacker. But again, like the Jim Lee we know is slowly forming. Like really nice use of shadow and blacks. And you know, like the same thing happens here. His style gets so like the audience attaches himself to Jim Lee's style so much that, you know, he eventually just, you know, he'll just stick with covers. Jim Lee pencils for number 18 here. Which see some of these, I know some of these he's just on the cover, but we're doing pretty good. Like, I mean, he's over 2 years on the title, and he's consistent. Issue 8, Jim Lee. So I know, like he goes further. Yeah, I know there's like a Punisher or Spider-Man cover. I don't know if he illustrated that. So like again, I don't have it all, but you know, I got a bulk of the Jim Lee War Journals, which is fantastic. But I'm not done. And to also complete more of this is to get the Jim Lee covers for the Punisher magazine. So again, too, right? We all know the story. Punisher War Journal flows right into Uncanny X-Men. Look, this one ain't even open. But 269. This right here, I argue a lot, or I make the argument a lot, that this might be the most impactful issue of X-Men of this era. And the reason is that people want this story so bad that people made YouTube careers speculating that Rogue was somehow going to be a part of the Captain Marvel movie, and that's how they were going to introduce the X-Men into the MCU. But we also get posterized artwork here. 269. And, you know, Chris Claremont, the writer, also of credit. But we got to bring both of those guys into the room. The way how people projected this comic for years on YouTube shows how much they even just wanted this moment on the cover. And if you're not familiar, Rogue gets her superhuman, like Superman-like powers from absorbing Captain Marvel's powers. Or Miss Marvel. We got the Extinction Agenda. Now, this is where we're rocking and rolling with Homage Studios. And you can kind of tell with some of the hair, some of the faces don't quite look like Jim Lee. the layouts and a lot of the tech are homage studios. Like here, like Jim Lee's in a full studio system, and you can pinpoint it. You can really pinpoint when. So Jim Lee really becomes a studio head, no different than what Bob Kane did, than the Schuster, like Simon and Schuster, not Simon and Schuster, the creators of Superman. I forget. Correct me in the comments on that one. But again, the studio system is what the American comic book industry was built on. Technically, the Marvel bullpen, right? That's the studio system. And Jim Lee, even Art Adams, a part of a studio system. So like there's a lot of weird pushback, and I think even at this era, like people will say like this is incredible work of Jim Lee, but you tell me that's not a Wells Portacio face, like right there. Like tell me that. Like if you have a good enough eye, not everything matches up. But people will pretend that it's just all Jim Lee, like by himself, and it's not. He's with a room full of people. Like fantastic cover here for X Factor. There's multiple. There's two separate editions of this. I keep one of them in my Jim Lee section of my box, and you'll see something similar for when we get to Heroes Reborn, Fantastic Four. Uncanny X-Men 275, which we can maybe argue one of the greatest like triple fold covers. This was a poster too, the poster in every single comic shop. But seeing Jim Lee tackle, like the X-Men universe or like the Marvel universe side of the X-Men universe, it was nuts. Like you would just get stuff like, I mean, look at him drawing Nick Fury. Like it's just like that helicopter. But you would just get wowed. So a lot of this like build up into the Image era. But again, too, like you get things like, is this a Jim Lee face? Look at the eyebrows. But there's just this like it's an overwhelming excitement. Like this is a Kubert, Andy Kubert drawing this. But there is this like endless excitement for Jim Lee, and everything comes to this, right? 8 million copies sold. I always dispute 8 million sold because this comic is a separate comic from this comic. Like the pages. It's a different SKU. See? It's a different comic. It's a different printed edition. Even though it came out at the same time, this is a different SKU. And I will also say, like, to be fair, you divide the covers up. And then maybe you get your number. It's confusing. But Jim Lee, again, like still like putting Nick Fury into the lives of the X-Men. But like so many of us, we grew up during this. Like this is one of the other like major Jim Lee influences that no one talks about. How Wolverine is held up in the scene with these like these containment like cuffs on him, where he's not moving. And Sam Keith does this, right? Like we see Lobo do that, and everyone sort of like picks this up and does their version of how Jim Lee visualized. This is this is how we contain a insanely dangerous person, or it's insanely dangerous, unhinged anti-hero. And I recently got this one, and I have to go through it a few times because, again, like this pose here, one of the most like overused poses in comic history. Jim Lee's doing bigger panels, and things seem to be a little bit quicker here, but I think some of his storytelling is optimized. Again, like not a Jim Lee face right here. And I can't speak too much of what they're doing here with Ghost Rider. But he would soon be off of X-Men, and again, like we all know what happens next. We're making our way, aka Powders. What happens next is the Wildstorm era, and we're gonna breeze through it because like we focus a lot. But I just want to, and I gotta say it, and I say it all the time. If you're still in the comments and you're there to hear this, let me know. The cover for Stormwatch is vastly superior over the cover of Wildcats. And I'm still confused of how like some of this happened, because like the symmetry's there, some of the poses are there. Like I always thought Grifter looked good, Zealot looked good, Voodoo Imp looks good. Even Void and Warblade in the background, right? Like these are like on a scale of 1 to 5. Like these are 5s, like these are 3s, and then like these Maul and Spartan are 2s. And I always like just give me a Sharpie. Like here, like I could never understand like where's the anatomy for Maul's arm here. It was always confusing, right? Like I just never like it just never looked right to me. And it's like, but the logo looks great. I even like Spartan's power like wisping over teams here, and look, even here like over the S. I don't know, but the Stormwatch cover is absolute perfection. You cannot draw a better comic book cover than this. You cannot produce a better comic book cover than this. So through Wildcats, like again, like Jim Lee discovers and launches the career of Brett Booth, who is, in my view, one of today's leading illustrators. And I just have a ton of different versions of Wildcats. The trade, this is one of my original trades, is beat up and torn up. But Wildcats, like, it goes through, like, so, like, here's the Wizard Ace edition with the Travis Charest cover. I got the gold, finally got Wildcats gold cover coming in soon. Oh, this has, sketches in here. Oh, cool. I forgot about that. Cool. Well, guys, some Jim Lee sketches for you. But he does solid work. Wildcats 1 through 4. And here he homages the first appearance of Omega Red with that X-Men issue. This is totally inspired work, top notch, but he cranks it up. So it becomes a monthly book, and he does these like gatefold, just like this is nuts here, guys. Look, like this is crazy. So he continues Wildcats, and then they cross over with Cyberforce for Killer Instinct. So much so, look, they have these like cool incentive covers. These were dealer incentive, meaning you had to order like 10,000 of these just to get like one of these, okay? And then we have issue 8, the vacation issue. This is where we start to break. This looks very much like a Wildstorms production with some Jim Lee. The Jim Lee Orbiters were doing a great job in like filling in his blanks. So like 8, 9, 10, then he crosses over with Chris Claremont, right? Like people like to say that they hated each other, but Chris Claremont does a crossover with Wildcats and Cyberforce. We have the Tapestry, the first appearance of her. She is a fantastic villain. But really cool stuff. And then, like, they're expanding so much. This is, like, Destiny of Void. So by the time, like, you're reading this, like, you just... The way how there's the connection between those two characters. There's just a lot of, like, backstory that they do a great job in filling in. But then, we get 12. We get 13. Again, we're kind of still with the Huntsman. We're still with the Chris Claremont character. Tapestry's like you see here too, like see how she like took over Void and Destiny, and she's like making this like floating throwing out of them, like really cool wild stuff. All of this available Wildstorm Wednesday. Like he brings us Mr. Majestic, which I view as a misstep. The Wildstorm universe does not need a Superman proxy at all. But then Jim Lee leaves. Look, this is his like goodbye letter. And then what happens is they do this Image X over month. And Eric Larson really gives you one of the like the worst possible Wildcat stories, but still Eric Larson ish, right? But uh and Jim Lee kind of like never comes back to the book. And while he's in Wildstorm, right? Like I pulled this one because I think what he does here got copied so much. But Jim Lee co-creates Deathblow. Deathblow is really like his first breakout character next to Backlash from Stormwatch. The grates here and the way how the light is emanating from below this floor and it's hitting Deathblow and it kind of creates this design effect. I'm telling you, AKA Powders, this shook a generation and is still copied to this day. And Jim Lee would further like do work with Wildstorm. Like here, he's drawing the cover for the Resident Evil magazine issue 3. Again, like it's a quick drawing, but his symmetry and his shape is there. When Jim Lee draws women, this is what we want. And a lot of Jim Lee's Wildstorm stuff we profile. We're not going to profile all of it. I just want to showcase some of these other things that you may have forgotten. This is him, coup d'etat, sleeper. This is Jim Lee. I used to call this his Sharpie comic. I think he draws this in one weekend. He nails it. I believe he may have drawn 3 issues of this like 12-issue series. But this coup d'etat 2 is what I consider to be the last great explosive 4-part event. Okay, ships weekly. So correct me. I believe maybe Jim Lee. I said this too recently. Maybe he draws 1 issue of the 4, but coup d'etat is the last great event for the Authority. After this, the Authority never quite comes back. And like here, he tries to bring back Wildcats. This is Wildcats volume 4 or 5. He mirrors the opening of the original Wildcats. Instead of Emp waking up in the drunken, bloody garbage pool, it's Grifter. But then, we wrap it up, and he brings us this new version of Mr. Majestic. He mirrors Majestic's design with Zealot, really cool stuff. We never got any more of this. This is a one and done. A lot of hype for Grant Morrison. In the Wildcats, I think the 25th anniversary hardcover, they print his entire picks, and I think we got to see the 6 or 7 issues that he had planned out. So the big notable thing, and you guys know, right? Jim Lee, Heroes Reborn, Fantastic Four. So why do I always have 2? Because I need to file these in my Heroes Reborn file, and then I need ones for my Jim Lee file. So that's why we have multiples here. Issue 3 is what I consider to be his masterwork in this entire run. He gives us locked in versions of of Namor, Captain America, Thor. It's all out war. Issue 3 is fantastic. And then we get into the Galactus stuff, we get into Doctor Doom. They reverse if you guys know the real Doctor Doom lore. They scarify Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom is not scarred. He has 1 scar. Maybe more. If you guys want to know more about that, just let me know. I'll make a video. But we get Super Skrulls, and through a lot of the work though, they move through, they boil a lot of the Fantastic Four history. I mean, again, nice looking Silver Surfer, but they boil things down into a digestible essence. And this is really what Marvel was looking for at the time. People just didn't know what to expect from Heroes Reborn. But he originally was playing for 12. Jim Lee takes it for 13. Wildstorm Productions also takes all of this over. And I left this Marvel Visions here for one reason. Fantastic Four artist Brett Booth. So this was a big deal. They wanted you to know they needed to explain away Jim Lee leaving Fantastic Four and Brett Booth coming on board. And they focused on it. So I believe there was a story here. I think Diamond Previews had a story. I don't think Wizard like pushed it too much, or Heroes Illustrated. I would have to double check that, but within like some of the reach, it was like the next best thing under Jim Lee is taking over a Jim Lee book, and it's a sales position. And I thought it was successful because I do believe Brett Booth does inspired work. So the last stack here is like random like Jim Lee like covers and oddities. Early cover here, RoboCop 2, The Future of Law Enforcement. Jim Lee does the cover. And yeah, look, Alan Grant, writer, Mark Bagley, pencils. How awesome is that? But yeah, that Jim Lee cover here. During that Image X over month, Jim Lee draws issue 13 of Savage Dragon. Now, Eric Larson, for his own continuity, later would read, like, Eric Larson draws his own version of issue 13 of Savage Dragon because he didn't want to break his numbering. Jim Lee gets credit in this, but it's really a Wildstorm production. This is one of my all-time favorite Jim Lee covers. Ultraverse Premiere issue 0. Here we have the great Norm Brayfogle. And maybe like the only true superhero proxy of Shazam that's not kind of like deconstructed. I think this cover of Mantra, and I believe this is Overlord, or I forget this guy's name. Overkill, maybe Overt Kill. No, that's something else. I forget this guy's name. But anyway, I don't know why this cover to me is very abstract, because it's hard to see exactly what's happening, but the gesture drawing in it is like fantastic. So he makes like a quick deal with Valiant during some of the Deathmate crossover, and I think he drew this cover for them like at a convention, like super quick, but again like sells the comic, sells the book very like nicely. If we have a second best design by Jim Lee, so if we have Spartan as 1 or 2, the other 1 or 2 contender is his redesign of Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern. And let me just see if we have. There's a couple covers that really sell it, but I don't know if we have anything in here. But again, though, like Jim Lee, Jim Lee has notes of great design. What if? Right here, not Jim Lee interiors, but a fantastic Jim Lee cover. Oh yeah, here's a good example. I think there's another cover where you see him from head to toe. I will always pick these up when I see them. Ghost Rider 27. This is again the other issue I have to read. X-Men crossover with Ghost Rider, and I wish I could speak more heavily on it. This like legendary stuff here. Batman Black and White. When this dropped, everything seemed to change. It really was like this idea of the Dark Knight becoming the if you were an artist, you had to draw the Dark Knight, and this led to like that movement, and also Jim Lee like eventually working with Batman on Hush with Jeff Loeb. Just imagine Stan Lee's Wonder Woman. These I think these are all good, and people really bash these for a while, but Jim Lee does some solid work here. Really interesting stuff. Fantastic cover here. Again, Jim Lee's like triangulation with the ghost heads in the background. Jim Lee getting painted over by Alex Ross for Infinite Crisis 1. This is, and I believe I got this around the time of the Blue Beetle. This is the first version of the modern day Blue Beetle, but penciled cover, like fantastic. So many people forget that Jim Lee did a Superman Unchained, the New 52 with Scott Snyder, and I kind of feel like this was a Hail Mary to save the perception. No one liked the New 52 Superman when that dropped. And they kind of like, I feel like they took this and they, like, let's just go, let's just, no, again, too, around the time of like Man of Steel, but they needed a significant like Superman version of this character like on the shelves, and to me that's what Unchained is. We have issue 2 there, we have issue 3 here. But again, like, great production work. Jim Lee did 2 runs. He did the Brian Azzarello run of Superman that, again, people like don't talk about, they don't reference. I think all the Jim Lee Superman work got memory hold. Here's issue 5. And this is not even, Jim Lee, but like, this is like really like the ink washes for Hush don't compare to Superman Unchained. But then Hush 2 we talked about. This is one of my and I thought about bringing this to the channel. I just don't feel like there's much in here to discuss story-wise. There's some great like style, but it's really not much. But this is one of my favorite modern day Jim Lee covers. And again, too, the perfect symmetry, the triangulation. We have a lot of characters and everything's kind of like visible, and it's just proportion wise like perfect. I keep this out a lot, guys, a lot. And this is one of the worst Jim Lee covers. And Action Comics 1000. We just have to say, the most important comic book in American history, and it has one of the worst Jim Lee covers. Here's a crazy thing. I've been wanting to bring this to you guys for Superman Fantastic Four month, and the same reasons you didn't get this were the same reasons you didn't get DC Pride during any of the Pride observations, because this is too light, too short, not impactful within some of these stories. They're just not quite there. It's almost like every story here needs like five or 10 extra pages. Jim Lee Wizard Edition. So there's multiple Wizard Jim Lee items that I've been like back and forth on how to present it to you guys, how to bring it to you. I do want to get to it all. Wizards coverage of Jim Lee is critical for more of Wildstorm Wednesday. But yeah, again too, like I never did a video on this, and I feel like I should. But as you can see, it's around the time of Heroes Reborn, and we have the thing crossing over with Fairchild, and we have she's burying what's his Grunt Monk, brain fart. What's his name? Oh my god, forget it. But real quick, guys, let me show you a couple more items. We're not quite done yet. It's just I always feel like I got, again, like I feel like I showed these off on the channel like so much. Batman Noir. This is the black and white Hush. It's deluxe size edition. Again, too, like just comparing some of those ink washes we just saw. I mean, like it's not even close, guys. Jim Lee rushing is way different than Jim Lee having time. This is essential, period. Jim Lee too, like popularizing the like the bottom of Batman's boot. But then the counterpart is Hush Unwrapped, which is all the penciled work. So again, like Hush is such a highly documented production. It's one of the few high-end comics that we have this level of comparison to. And and you give full credit to Jim Lee, but I believe like even at this time, Jim Lee had like a full-time assistant that would take care of all this for him. And like we're better for it. So, like that's how you use some of your power and influence. Get a assistant or two. But yeah, guys, happy birthday, Jim Lee, coming to you from Pike.